thank you so much for doing this. This is all about you guys, your journey in music, how you got to where you are now. We'll talk about obviously forming the Getters and what you have going on currently.
Sounds good. Sure.
Right on.
Cool. So tell me who everybody is, left or right or.
I'm Jerry Nettles. Play guitar and keys.
Okay.
I'm Christopher Goodwin. I sing in Getters.
Cool.
And Micah Miller, play drums.
Very cool. Thank you guys so much for doing this. We'll start. Where are you guys all from the same area?
Yeah, we all live in Houston.
But born and raised in Houston?
I was born and raised in Brenham, Texas, which is like a small country town, like about halfway between Houston and Austin.
Okay. What about you? What about you, Mike? Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Houston, but I grew up in Georgetown, Texas, which is about 25 miles north of Austin in central Texas. And moved to Houston. My dad worked in law enforcement, and we were relocated to Houston in the middle of my sophomore year of high school. So I came kicking and screaming.
Oh, wow. Okay. What about you, Christopher? Where were you born and raised?
Yeah, so I was born in downtown Houston and grew up in a suburb outside of Houston called Sugarland.
Oh, Sugarland. I know Sugarland. No, what's funny is we just moved to Nashville about a month and a half ago, and prior to that, we were looking at moving to Houston, and we went through Sugarland. That's such a cool little town.
It really is. Yeah, it's very diverse, very advanced. It's not really like a small suburb, but and it has a lot going on too.
Sure, yeah, and it's not really a small suburb, but it's definitely its own thing there in Houston. I love it.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool, man. Well, how'd you get into music?
Go for it, man.
Right on. So I've been doing music a long time. My dad was a musician. He was a guitar player. So I grew up with music being kind of a staple in the house. When I remember him on Saturday nights, getting comfy by the TV, with a glass of wine, watching Austin City Limits.
Oh, there you go.
So like it just, I've had musical seeds, be planted in me from the get-go. My uncle was kind of like a country western singer, guitar strummer, and so even at family get-togethers, they would just get together and kind of have a little jam. I had cousins who would bust out like some spoons, and get rapping on those. So yeah, I always just saw what music could do to bring people together, and I knew at a pretty early age that I wanted to do it. I started playing bass and guitar at about 12. And by 16, I had gone career doing music, went ahead and homeschooled and spent my junior and senior year traveling around playing music. So, and I've been career full-time musician ever since then.
Wow. Okay. So were you in a band that got signed and successful? Tell me this story.
I had some older friends who believed in me, saw the potential that I had, knew that I really wanted to make a go of spending my life playing music. And they kind of just took me under their wings. And so, I was 16 years old doing fly dates, as a bass player in their band. And the rest of the guys were well into their 30s, super seasoned. And I was just a punk kid who kind of early taste of what it would be like to be a professional musician. And I was hooked pretty fast after that. And so
with your dad being a guitar player, obviously I'm sure he embraced this or encouraged it, or was that kind of a fight between the family? Like, hey, I'm gonna fly around and I'm still in high school.
I had the utmost support from both my dad and my mom as well. And, I think that my dad probably could have gone on to have been, a successful musician and put his own stamp on the world if he had had support from his parents. And they were more along the lines of, why are you sitting around playing your guitar all the time? Why don't you get in trouble or whatever? And so when opportunities started to arise for me, like he just said, you know what, like I'm not going to do anything to hold this back. And so I had two awesome supporting parents who allowed me to get started on what I was, kind of made to
Destin.
do from an early age. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. How about you, Jerry? You play guitar and keys in the band. What was the first instrument you learned?
Was my first instrument was guitar.
Okay. How did you get into music?
Kind of similar to Chris, actually. I started playing guitar around 12. My dad was a drummer,
Oh, okay.
and he got
Like
my sister and I
a
into.
weekend warrior drummer, or was he like in a
No, he was like
band?
a church drummer. He played.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But my father got my brother, my sister, and I into music. So yeah, I started playing guitar when I was 12, and I fell head over heels for it. So about by the time I was in high school, my parents were actually driving from Brenham to Houston to take the three of us to a performing arts school,
Oh,
which was fun, and allowed lots of room for growth there.
sure.
Yeah, and then around 18, I started touring full time. Just went into it.
What similar to Chris's story? Like, were you playing in other bands that were touring, or were you in a band that kind of like that you had formed at the school that kind of got going? Like, tell me about how you got into touring.
I actually started a band when I was 17. My
Okay.
parents gave me the ultimatum, like either get a record deal or you're going to college. And I
That's
said,
pretty good. So
"Oh,
you got the record deal?
yes, sir." Yeah.
Wow.
I got really lucky, and my band signed to Warner Brothers, Maverick Warner Brothers, when I was 18.
Wow.
Well, yeah, it was a whirlwind for sure. My brother was in the band. He was 17. The drummer was 19, and the singer was 20.
And you
Uh,
guys
so,
just started touring the country? Did you put some records out?
um,
Started getting the weeds here with this, but I was just curious.
well, I mean, everything happened really fast. Yeah, we got our advance and money from the label, and we went. We flew to Canada, made a record with Garth Richardson there, and then came straight home from that, and we found a van on Craigslist and went and bought it. And I think by then our parents knew, like, oh crap, are these kids?
They're into something here.
We bought our van off Craigslist, and yeah, just hit the road.
Wow. And then toured for up until you met these guys?
Well, no, so we toured for about, I don't know, 3, 4 years, something like that.
Okay.
And then we got caught up in, you know,
Band drama.
well, record label drama.
Oh, record label drama, of course.
And so for us by then, it was just, we knew we were kids, and that was a great experience for us, but we still wanted to, at least me, I can speak for myself, I wanted to learn more about the business side of music.
Uh-huh.
I ended up going that route for a while until I moved back to.
Did you go to like school to learn?
No, I actually got offered a job in New York working for a record company there.
Wow, that's
So,
awesome.
and I worked for a few different companies in New York doing that. And
Very
then Texas. And I've known these guys and toured with them for a long time. I mean,
Oh, really? Prior to Getters, because you guys are. How long have you guys been a band? Because I'm looking on your stuff. It doesn't look like you have a whole lot out online.
yeah, so we're a new band. We've only been, we're on our third single, which is coming out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're still
Well, you guys did all prior. You knew each other prior and played with each other prior to Getters going.
Yeah, so whenever I was just a kid, we were all kids, doing the Houston music scene at the same time. So I've known all these guys since I was about 18.
Wow. Okay. How about you, Micah? Where did you? How'd you get into music? And always a drummer?
My story is very different. So,
Okay.
with my father in law enforcement and my mother a school teacher, the last thing they ever wanted was anyone with pierced ears or tattoos or baggy jeans in the 90s, you know.
So you have 2 sleeves.
You know, the first time I came home with my cartilage pierced when I was a senior in high school, I don't think my dad talked to me for a week. You know, he's like, I can't believe this. He's grown more familiar as time has gone by, you know.
Sure.
But no, they, you know, I grew up playing a lot of sports and was playing club soccer year round and traveling all over the southern part of the United States doing tournaments. Playing in this thing called ODP, which is Olympic Development Team.
Wow.
Florida, and was just, you know, really all focused on soccer. Then like I said, I moved to Houston my sophomore year of high school, and I was pissed. And for years, one of my closest friends growing up in Georgetown, his older sister had a boyfriend that was in a band, so we'd always go watch their band practice. And I'd asked my parents for a bass guitar for years, and their answer was always like, it's a phase. You don't want a bass guitar. You know, we'll help you build a soccer goal, and we'll put it in the backyard, and you can go do that. And so I was like, okay, whatever. So when I moved to Houston, they're like, hey, you know, we feel bad. How about that bass guitar? I'm like, drums. I want drums.
Well, you blew it on that because I'm going to be the loudest person in the neighborhood.
So, go to school, go to soccer practice, come home, wait till my dad, you know, clocked out of work and pulled in and turn on the evening news and play drums.
That's amazing.
That was kind of my story. So I, you know, started playing drums at 16, formed a couple of bands. You know, in high school, and when I was in college, formed a few other bands. And as I was getting out of college, you know, the band Jerry was in, was, you know, taking off and touring, and I convinced him that my band should go on tour with him. And so he fortunately brought us along for the ride here. And so I got my college degree, handed it to my parents, and said, I'm going on tour. So y'all wanted me to have this more than I wanted it. So here you go. I'm going to play. And they were like, I can't believe this. You know, so that's kind of my story with music. Much different.
Yeah. I'm actually curious on the side of the soccer thing, because being involved in these leagues, you know, that are probably pushing kids to be in like MLS and everything else in soccer, right? I mean, and you're in high school and you move to a new high school. Do you have to like prove yourself as a soccer player? Are they aware that you're already really good? And then are kids envious of you? They're like, oh, this new kid's here and he's like on the varsity team, like starting. Like, did you get any of that grief from other kids at the school?
Certainly. You know, the funniest thing was where my dad's office was when we moved to Houston was in a section of Houston called Cy-Fair. Okay. And the oldest school in that district is Cy-Fair High School. So naturally, my dad was like, oh, it'd be great for you to go to, you know, the first ever school in this area. So I go tour the school. We go check out the football stadium where their home soccer games are. And I'm talking to the coach, and he's like, well, man, you know, we would love to have you. You come highly recommended from your club in Georgetown and your high school coach there. But honestly, do you see that school right across the freeway? They're top 10 in the nation. I don't even know why you're over here. I was like, see ya.
You're like, yeah, Dad, this school that's old is cool, but yeah, I'm going here.
So went across the street and played for their rival across the freeway, and we beat them really badly the next 3 years. So,
did you ever like wave at the coach, like, "Sup, dude? Like, thanks for the
every game." I'm like, "Oh man, what a suggestion! I appreciate it.
I appreciate you so much. That's amazing." Okay, well then, so you're doing drums and soccer, and so you guys are all kind of just part of the Houston scene. And then obviously touring and everything else. Chris, with you though, were you in a band in the Houston scene, and then because it sounds like you were part of a band that had older guys in it. Were they all part of the Houston scene and kind of around the same time as Jerry and Micah? Or like, I mean, it sounds like you were like able to fly out and meet them at places, and like your tour story is a little bit different.
Yeah, I definitely started. I got a nice tiny taste of what, you know, the top of the mountain could be like being a professional hired musician, getting a call, getting an itinerary, getting a, you know, like a plane ticket, and then just going and meeting a band. You know, essentially everyone would be from all over the country, and we'd meet, you know, in Portland, or we'd meet in Atlanta or whatever, and play a show, get a check, fly home. And that was a taste of what life, you know, could be like later down the road. But the reality of it was that just kind of, you know, was a tiny taste to get me excited to, you know, have to end up back down at the bottom of the mountain and rebuild my own path. So I spent, you know, my remaining teenage years playing in a band until the band broke up around 20, or when I was 20. And then at that point, I started a group of my own. And that's pretty much when we all kind of started to meet up, and we were kind of just building a rock scene in Houston. And so, but yeah, I went from doing fly dates to literally, you know, being squished in the back of a 15 passenger with not one, but like two bands, because we could afford to rent our own 15 passenger. Sure. So yeah, so I kind of got a taste of like what life could be like, you know, a little later down the road, but then had to start at kind of the bottom and build my way back from the ground up in a real DIY kind of fashion. So no, yeah, definitely know how to rough it. Definitely know what it's like to be in a punk rock band, like, you know, booking tours off of MySpace and everything else.
Okay.
Right, by throwing out MySpace. But
well, that's where I was gonna go next, because you must, if you were 16 or so flying around the country, 17 or whatever, like at what point was it like a mutual thing where you're like, you know what, I want to like stay here, I want to start my own thing? Or because when you were in this other band, were you helping them write it all, or was it just basically you were just hired dude that shows up and plays what you're supposed to play and then goes home?
It was that, you know, It was grooming me to, you know what it's like to be a hired musician, which is show up, do your job, you know, and then hit the road, you know, which, you know, I'm very grateful that I have that ability, and I still kind of do that, you know, really like quite frequently, you know, like I'm very, very apt to kind of just, you know, get like a Dropbox folder or whatever with a collection of songs. And it's like, learn these songs, show up, be ready to just, you know, rock, you know. But,
right.
You know, my heart has always been my own original artistry in music, and really kind of building something with my friends, you know, creating our own thing, our own flavor, and just kind of, you know, doing whatever we can to kind of put our own signature on the world. So that's always been where my heart is. But no, being a hired gun as a musician, that's what pays the bills often. So
right, of course. So well with you guys, Jerry, Micah, like were your bands were you all kind of in the same boat where it came to like, you know, we should all just start Getters together? Like how did that conversation happen, and how did the band kind of form?
Sure. So after many years in many bands, so
sure,
this isn't the first iteration that the three of us have all been involved in. So
okay, so you had all played together. Yeah, tell me about this. Sorry.
So, you know, Chris, we all had our individual bands, and probably the early to mid 2000s that played a lot together locally, regionally, nationally. And all of those bands kind of sputtered around the same time. And shortly thereafter, I started another band. And at this time, Jerry decided to open his own studio and was recording and producing bands. Chris had been doing that for years. And that band went through the full gambit, you know, started and said, we don't care about record deals, touring, you know, we're all broke. We need real jobs with insurance. And like 6 months later, we were signing a record deal and going on tour with Deftones. So it was crazy, right? And we were first to play guitar. Jerry, you know, I woke him up one morning. We were about to go on tour with a band called Sick Puppies.
Yeah, I've heard of Sick Puppies.
And I go wake him up, and I'm like, Jerry, I have your orange cab and your Marshall head and guitar in the trailer. What I need from you right now is to wake up and get in the van, and we'll talk about it. We got to go to Abilene, Texas tonight. We have plenty of time to talk. And he's like, what are you talking? I'm like, please, dude, we're best friends. Just get in the van. We'll talk about it. So he gets in the van. We thought we were going to do 3 dates. We did like 3 months.
Wow.
So,
You have like 1 or 2 pairs of clothes. You're like,
girlfriend at the time, who is now, my wife of over a decade.
Oh,
I told her,
congratulations.
I'm like, hey, just, come hang out for 3 days. It'll be fine. And then, stuck, in middle America for 3 months as well. So we did that band, full on, with Jerry playing guitar, Chris playing guitar. We toured the States. I think we bought a van with 1,000 miles on it from the dealership, and we sold it with about 150,000 miles. Toured the UK, the US, like I said, Deftones, Download Festival, a bunch of other cool festivals. And, we really sold the farm and went all in on this band. And just as we were getting some attention from national radio and better tours, it just fizzled. Like as fast as it came is as fast as it went. And,
sure.
We rode the wave of that till the end. And then that band fizzled. Jerry had been working in New York for a few years and had come back to town. And, I've got 2 children. Jerry's got a son, and they're all good buddies. So I was trying to reacclimate Jerry back to being in Houston, and convinced him to get his guitar out of the closet. And we started writing some songs. And then we started writing some songs that were like, hey, these are actually kind of good. We like them. Wow. They're not just songs on a computer. We soon after reached out to Chris and convinced him to, wake up early and hop in the van and come for a ride. So,
hey, we're going somewhere.
It's been a van, but still a mentality nonetheless. Yeah.
Sure. I mean,
that's the long short of how Getters came to fruition. Is, a lot of years of knowing each other, playing in other bands, and then touring the world together in a band. And then just kind of out of nowhere deciding, hey, let's try something new. Let's take all of the mistakes we've made, all of the lessons we've learned, and not do those things the way that we've done them before. So we've just kind of gotten a little older, a little wiser, have a different approach this time. And it's been really fun. We've been getting a good response. And
yeah. I mean, I've heard 2 songs from that you guys have put out, Tidal Wave and Row, which are amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah. And I want to say, like, I'm curious, like, what did Getters start? Was this like a conversation that you guys had due to like coronavirus and the pandemic happening and everyone's kind of around and home, or was Getters a thing and then that happened and kind of threw a wrench in whatever plans that you had post?
No, it didn't have anything to do with the corona.
Oh, okay.
More of, like Micah said, I just come back to Houston, and we were just, our boys would get together every weekend, and hang and whatever. We'd just be having fun.
Sure.
Music, and then, we got to where we were just writing so fast, like, at least at one, song a weekend. And so then that's when we decided, like, hey, let's just go ahead and finish these songs, and let's call Chris, because we felt like he was, the right third
guy.
And so we just sat down, we had a conversation, and then by the time we sat down, to record vocals and track vocals together, it was as easy as us, getting vocals on a tune and realizing, like, okay, these songs could be really special. And then also, like Micah said, we have learned a lot about music in the business, and we just felt like, why not release music and the best way that we know how with everything that we've learned. We're a little bit older, so we're not writing songs about our high school sweethearts.
Sure.
A little bit more alive to talk about. So
Right.
it's playing out just real stories about real things that I'm sure a lot of people hopefully can relate to.
I love that. Well, where were you guys honestly when that all happened? Was that like was Tidal Wave and Row like written, recorded? Because I know you have a live version of one of the songs. Like you got played out, I'm sure, like prior to that, right?
No.
Oh no.
Actually, no. That's why
So-
I had mentioned that, the van is proverbial because
Oh, got it now. That one went over my head.
well, yeah, I'll a little better, but yeah, our path is kind of it's atypical compared to most of the bands that I've been in. Where like, we would spend hours and hours a week, like week in, week out, for months and months and months, crafting all of these songs in a jam room, and then go out and then start kind of building an organic following. That's a typical way
Right.
I've always done it in the past, and it's really not how we kind of got started. When these guys came to me, they had these demos, just music beds, with some vocal ideas, and they were, kind of, I think, done in GarageBand, even some of them. But they showed a lot of potential, and then we just kind of got our heads around like what the vocals would be, and so I guess you guys had built the tracks just hanging out at your house, probably more than anything. And the guys came over to my studio, and we just kind of like set up a mic and just kind of started working our way through the songs. But then by the end of the session, it's like the song was there, and so we, the music was done pretty much with Jerry, like on his laptop, wherever he was. And I just laid down vocals, which I thought were going to be demos or scratch tracks, on all these tunes, but ended up kind of being the ones that we released. And that, has a lot to do with, well, this lovely pandemic that we've all been experiencing.
Sure.
For the last, year now. So the guys came to me in 2019. We had all of these plans to kind of garner some outside support and funding, and then take these demos that we had done and go to a proper studio with a proper producer and record them properly. And that just didn't happen for a number of reasons. Like a lot of the producers that we were reaching out to and were talking to, they ended up getting busy or whatever, or they were even like, hey, why don't you guys just release these tracks that you have? And of course, we were like, well, they're demos. We can't do that.
Right.
So then, even us, we, during, the 2020, we didn't even really get together very much. All of our correspondence were just kind of like via just a text thread or Zoom or whatever. We were, we finished a lot of the vocals for the 6 songs that we have, with Skype sessions, very similarly to what we're doing now. Like I would speak to Mike and I would sing a take, and Jerry would be like, hey, why don't you try this or that? Or maybe throw an in there. And I did it. And then it'd be like, cool. And I'd burn it down and, drop it in the cloud. So really, we really haven't done a whole lot of, playing. We've done no playing out, then really
Right.
the time that we played Row live together was when we were shooting the live video that I guess you probably have seen now, which was awesome and fun. Again, totally unorthodox as far as really any experience of putting a band together that I've been in, but it's been awesome.
Wow. I mean, it's such a different world now to like navigate putting out records and even the whole industry in itself. I mean, you guys have been in it since your majority of your life. I'm saying, you're touring, you're putting a record out, you're touring. Now you've got songs, and it's like stuff. It's been a year. Stuff still isn't open to play yet. I mean, they're saying these festivals are popping up a little bit. Outside Lands, Bonnaroo, and hopefully that means smaller club shows are going to be happening. Hopefully, but did you guys even think about, what? Okay, let's just hold on to this for a while, or were you set on let's just release it? Who cares?
I think we have totally argued plenty about what is the best way, the best time, etc., to release this, and just came back to, you know what? If we just do it in a way that we think is unique, then maybe enough people will pay attention. So our whole idea for this 6-song EP is we're gonna start releasing 1 track per month for 6 months, and then that'll be the EP. And every song we're gonna do a video, and we're gonna do a PR push, and you know, we're gonna just we're gonna go live, man. We're gonna max out everything that we can do for 30 days on every single, and then once all 6 are out, we will push those and see what happens. So we just kind of intentionally wanted to do it different, and I think that that's been received positively, but also like, what are you guys doing here? So
I think even for our own selves, I mean, I think I could speak for all of us. We're all very meticulous when it comes to the music that we make. And I think we're kind of used to like having and crafting and crafting and crafting and like just working over music until we feel like it's perfect. And sometimes, you know, that takes damn near forever, you know, and it always takes longer than you think. And I think that we had started with that mentality when, you know, like with this project, thinking that we were going to be just adding more coats of paint and then on the demos and then redo them and then put out this big budget like release. But I think we all kind of came to a point where we said, this just is not what is in the cards for us. It doesn't really work for timing, and it doesn't really work with, you know, us being, you know, in the middle of COVID times anyways. And so we all just kind of, you know, individually and then collectively came to a point where we said, you know what, let's get these tracks that we thought were going to be the demos, let's send them to New York, let's get them mastered, and let's just go, let's just activate. And you know, and we won't wait any longer, and we won't wait until it's quote unquote perfect. It just is what it is, you know, and the songs will grow and we'll grow, but it's time to make moves, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's been really, really cool in that regard, you know, like, and the fact that like we're getting any kind of attention on, you know, on stuff that, you know, normally we would have just been holding on to for so long is cool. The fact that anybody has had a chance to listen to it and to like it is awesome. But you know,
yeah, I mean, a couple 100,000 people according to Spotify.
Well, it's true.
That's a pretty large amount, especially in the sense of you guys have just kind of started a band. I mean, you had success prior, but it's like, okay, we got this new thing together. We're gonna do it. And I'm wondering if you almost, because of the pandemic, do you get in those, maybe even prior to the pandemic, get into those modes where you're, as you know, engineers and producers, like where you're talking about, you know, layering the paint and like removing the demo and this and that. Do you get to a point where you're stacking up too much stuff and it's like, oh, like you can almost overproduce? And is it a thing, especially now, because you have even more time to sit with these songs and listen and listen and listen? And like, should we, like, is it easier to overproduce a track now that you have more time to sit around and listen to it a million times?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one really great thing about the last year has been that there's been so much time for us to think about what we want to do with this, because we don't, most of the time when you're starting a band, you know, like Chris had mentioned, there's so much time spent in the rehearsal room. Mm-hmm. You know, and you know, a quarter of the time you're making music and the rest of the time you're screwing around with your buddies. You know?
Right.
And now, you know, we've got families, we have lives, and so the time that we do decide to, you know, devote to what we're doing, we're in it. And so I think that taking that opportunity over the last year to really focus on what we want to do with the band has been, you know, an excellent thing for us.
Yeah. And I love your approach too, where it's like, we'll put a song out, we'll push it, we'll do a video, and then we'll put the next song out. Because if you think about it, I mean, 6 months down the line from now, fingers crossed, that's when you guys could actually maybe get on the road and tour the EP that's out. People will be familiar with the songs. your name will be out there and you can do some, some pretty big shows. I would think that that's kind of what the mentality is.
That's, really the plan is release, build, and, connect as best we can. And when it's most soon available, we'll be in a live setting. We have some opportunities in the works already. A few local and regional festivals in and around Texas that aren't going to be until 2022 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have those things in mind and on the horizon. So that's definitely where the sights are set.
I love it.
I think that there was a time when, I remember the time when it clicked that 2020 was going to be a wash. Like,
do you remember the moment? I want to hear this.
Well, I mean, I could go back, last March, I just remember talking, be like, okay, we're going to take 6 weeks, and everyone stay home.
Right.
Everything will be fine. You think we'll be touring? You think we'll be out playing shows in June? Well, I don't know. But it was probably in June when I was like, you know what? This isn't going to be ending anytime soon.
Right. This curve will never flatten. Remember that? What happened to that?
I have friends who were working in Live Nation venues in town, and they said that, well, people up high are kind of saying that, maybe we're looking at like a fall 2021. And I said, 2021?
Right.
Okay, so this is something that is not going to go away anytime soon. And, so along with that, I think that we've kind of just have found peace in the fact that even if things don't go back to the way that they were as far as playing shows and everything else, for the entirety of 2021, the least that we can do is put out what we have now, let the world enjoy it, let us, build content, let us, kind of get our heads around what we would like to do when everything kind of goes back to normal. And, so I think for us, we've kind of come to a place where we're like, we'll spend the rest of this year doing what we're doing, hopefully in 2022, everything will kind of be, up and running. And I think that's kind of where we're setting our sight to as far as going public, being a band that's, out and doing things in the world. In the meantime, we're here on Zoom hanging out.
Yeah, you're here online, and I love it. Like I said, I love the approach, a song a month, and I'm sure you guys are writing more music as the as the months go on. So you'll still have more and more. I mean, are you? I'm just assuming at this point.
Yeah, I think that's the name of the game for us. We want to be at a place that whenever these 6 songs are out, when the EP is out, that we've already made steps towards the next batch. The last thing that we want to do is to put out these 6 songs, have everyone enjoy it, and then go, okay, what's next? Because that's what we do now,
Mm-hmm.
And then be like, yeah, what's next? Guys want to sing some songs.
Yeah, right.
We have a folder of some ideas that we're starting to kind of slow roast now.
I love it. Well, I can't wait to hear the rest of the record, and I thank you guys so much for doing this.
Hey, thank you for having us.
Yeah, I have one more question for each of you. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Ooh, geez, that's hard. Just one thing.
Whatever. No, any advice.
Yeah, my advice would be to really take the business that you're getting into seriously and learn all the aspects of it. I think right now with the whole YouTuber or the whole streaming thing that is happening, there is this whole idea that you can get to a place to where you can sit home and record yourself, and you can do kind of what we're doing, which is write music and just put it out and see if it works. But you don't learn everything about the business. My advice would be to just learn the business and take it just as seriously as you do learning how to play your instrument and craft what you do. Just learn the business.
I love that. Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah, sure thing.
Chris, you got anything for me?
Sure. Yeah. Mine's kind of two-sided, but I think that they kind of come together to offer balance, which I think the balance is super important. Like, I think that I would advise anyone to fall in love with their craft, fall in love with the thing they do, put in the time, master your craft, become the best version of what you do that you can be, and really nothing else matters. But on top of that, don't get stuck like just sitting, running scales or practicing in your room. Like, don't wait until perfection, because it'll never come. And honestly, that's a good thing. Music and your career and your passion, they're journeys. So don't dive head first into it. Never stop growing, but also don't wait until you feel like you've arrived before you start putting stuff out in the world.
I love it. What about you, Micah?
The only thing I can add here is don't be in a rush. Jerry and I manage some bands, and everyone just wants to go from where they are to where all of their favorite artists are.
Yeah. 0 to Blink-182.
It's like they're playing, Mario Brothers, and they want to go from level 1 to 4, 4 to 8, and
sure, that's a good example.
Beat the game. And I think there's so much to be learned by taking your time. Kind of what Chris said, learn what you can learn, get in a band and go start playing some shows, make friends with other bands, learn what it's like to just drive to Dallas to play a show, or to Austin, or wherever you are, within your region. Learn what it's like to do all of the baby steps that matter along the way. It's a building off of what Jerry had to say, which is learn the business. Learn everything that there is to learn, not just about writing the songs, but learn how to be in a band, how to be a good bandmate. Learn how, if you're ever going to sign a contract, you need to understand what you're signing, and not just signing it away and then you're TLC, the highest selling artist of all time, in the 90s, and be broke.
Right. MC Hammer.
I think it's just very important to take your time, hone your craft, and be willing to appreciate the small goals along the way. And just don't be in a rush. You have a long time to get to the top, and just take your time getting there.